Hi, we're Team 7, and we're presenting an analysis of gene therapy companies targeting common diseases. There has been a rise in the research and development of gene therapies in the past 2 decades. As of today, the only FDA-approved gene therapies are those that target rare diseases. Development of these treatments has been driven by the economic incentives of the Orphan Drug Act and the heritability of these conditions, which provides a clear genetic target. While there has been evidence that gene therapy is a viable treatment option in terms of clinical effectiveness and financial return, it has not been widely used for more common disorders. In our analysis, we plan to evaluate the scientific merit and economic potential for early biotech companies targeting gene therapies for common diseases. We will focus on Verve Therapeutics, Hot Therapeutics, and Genprex to get a comprehensive overview of the therapeutic space and address treatment for the most common chronic conditions in the United States. These companies are developing therapeutics for heart disease, asthma, and diabetes, respectively. All of these therapies are very early in their pipelines and have a long way to go before they can be FDA approved, but we'll discuss their progress and valuations thus far.
The first company we want to look at is Verve Therapeutics. So this is a gene therapy company that was founded in 2018 by internationally renowned cardiologists right here in Cambridge. So they are targeting atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, which is the leading cause of morbidity and mortality in the US. And this is especially prevalent among those with familial hypercholesterolemia, which is a genetic disorder leading to chronically high levels of LDL cholesterol. So normally this would be treated by statins. That's the first line treatment. But Verve has identified a pain point being the sort of undertreatment of this disease due in part to patient discontinuation of treatment. So basically patients just fall off and stop taking their statins after time. And then they have to reinitiate, and leads to chronically higher LDL levels than would be ideal. So the way this works, this disease, you have high LDL cholesterol, which can accumulate as plaques in the arteries that can lead to strokes and heart failure. So statins will deal with this by targeting PCSK9, which degrades the LDL receptor, meaning that LDL can then be taken into cells and metabolized, whereas normally when you have high LDL, it'll just accumulate in the bloodstream. So Verve is also going after PCSK9, so it's a validated target, but their approach is different. So they're packaging mRNA for a base editor and CRISPR guide RNA into a lipid nanoparticle. So this way you have a base editor, which is licensed from Beam, targeting the PCSK9 gene, introducing mutations without the need for a double strand break, which will reduce the levels of PCSK9, and in turn, that will lead to lower LDL levels. So if we look at the non-human primate data, it's actually very promising. So you can see close to 90% reduction in PCSK9 levels, and then that will lead to lower blood LDL cholesterol levels by around 50 to 60%. So Verve is hoping to treat its first human patients in the second half of 2022.
So moving into the gene therapy space for chronic allergic inflammation and asthma, Hot Therapeutics has the leading candidate, HT4, which is currently in late preclinical trials. HT4 aims to treat asthma via the delivery of nebulized splice-switching oligonucleotides, otherwise known as SSOs, that facilitate exon skipping of the beta subunit of the high-affinity IgE receptor, which is uniquely expressed in mast cells and basophils, the cell types responsible for mediating the allergic inflammation that you see in the bronchial and peribronchial regions of the lung in asthma. HT4's most recent update indicates successful reduction of peribronchial inflammation in mouse asthma models following inhalation. They are now working on a humanized model for further development and plan to initiate drug product development in Q4 of 2021. While their biological and functional approach mechanisms are both well validated, Hoth's only current demonstrated advantage against the existing standard of care for asthma is the theoretical potential for eliminating dependence on treatment adherence, which is already poor in asthma patients, for the success of the clinical outcome. As of recent survey and analysis, the patient population prefers ad hoc treatment for acute symptomatic relief, i.e. your basic standard inhaler, but ultimately HOTH would be competing with existing biologic treatments that treat more severe forms of asthma that also target the same therapeutic target.
The newest addition to Genprex's portfolio is GPX2, and this is promoted as a potential cure for type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Although the etiology differs between the two conditions, with type 1 caused by autoimmune attacks and type 2 associated with insulin resistance, their pathophysiology is the same, which is a significant loss of insulin-producing beta cells, and this leads to hyperglycemia. So Genprex is developing GPX2, an adeno-associated virus vector, which contains the PDX1 and MAFA genes. These genes transform alpha cells that are in the pancreatic islet into beta-like cells, resulting in insulin production. The modality method allows for specified delivery of AAV8 vector to the islet, reducing chance of off-target effects and expression. The gene therapy was initially tested in mice representative of type 1 diabetes, but not for type 2. Human clinical trials have not begun, but preclinical primate studies are being conducted. It is unclear whether the primate model will represent both type 1 and type 2 diabetes.
So we did a simple DCF analysis on the 3 gene therapy programs. We assumed a discount rate of 20% and a probability of success of 5% for all 3 programs, given that all 3 programs are in the preclinical stage and all have significant hurdles and risk attached. For Verve, we considered 2 ranges due in part to whether or not they can target the patient general cardiovascular disease patient population or just the FH patient population. We got a probability adjusted NPV of 30 million or 38 million to 500 million. With HOTH Therapeutics, we found an NPV of around 630 million, and with Genprex, we got a NPV of around 480 million.
So based on our analysis, we see that there's a lot of potential for gene therapy and that it's a growing possibility. From all these companies, the preclinical data looks promising and shows a proof of principle, but the question remains whether patients will use this perceived riskier treatment as opposed to the existing safer alternatives. Furthermore, since no one has ever had a gene therapy for common diseases, the payment structure remains unclear, and we're not sure how that'll work since it doesn't have the same economic benefits as gene therapies for rare diseases. So with all these in mind, we conclude that we anticipate a low market penetration for gene therapies for common diseases in the near future. Thank you.